Hello Internet. I figured I'd make another video. To be completely honest, I've been kind of avoiding it because I've emotionally felt pretty shitty, but yeah, there's my cat. Say hi, Della. Yeah. I got Eric a monkey for when he goes to the hospital, and it was kind of funny because I was in Zayre's and they have like the sales section for all the stuff that they're trying to get rid of, and it's after Valentine's Day, right? Eric and I just celebrated our 7-year anniversary, and I saw this monkey and I was like, oh my god, it's so cute, and I would like, this would be awesome for him when he's in the hospital. And I was like, oh, it would also be cute for my nephew Oliver, who almost died last year as well, so it's just been a great year. But there was only one of them. So I'm like, okay, so I'll buy it, and depending on Eric's reaction, I'll just say it was for Oliver the whole time. And so I got home and I went into the shower, and Eric found the monkey in a bag, and he was like, oh dear, it's so sweet, thank you so much. And he like came over and gave me a kiss, and I was like, okay, in my head I'm like, I guess it's going to Eric and not Oliver. But I'm glad that he liked it, so he's gonna bring it with him when he's in the hospital, since legally I'm allowed to visit at any time because the laws have changed, and at least in Ontario, if not all of Canada, but direct family members have 24-hour visiting privileges. How did this all start? So right now it is February 2018, and in about April last year, 2017, Eric started getting sick. Like he had some sort of throat infection, and he waited several weeks before going to the doctor. And then in May 17th, I think the exact date was, because I'm looking at all these things, because I keep everything. So I've tried to make a timeline, which I should have in front of me while I'm talking about this. But May 17 was the first prescription that he got for what was happening in his throat and mouth. They started treating him for oral thrush, it's called, and that didn't work. And he went back then again in June for another treatment. And Eric had already seen 2 doctors at this point, and they were very frustrating. One of them said that they didn't believe in genomics, which is stupid. I don't even know what the fuck that means. They said that they were old school. I don't know what old school as a doctor means, like witch spells and shit like that. I don't know. But it was frustrating because, genetics was one thing that really helped my nephew, Oliver, when he was in the hospital. So it was extremely insulting. And Eric and I were talking about this, like what the doctor had said during his appointment. At the time, it was on a bus. We didn't have a car. And there was this guy who we didn't know that just came up to us, and he shook Eric's hand. And it was so weird. And he was like, thank you for going to the director. He was a PhD student at the university. I think it was mathematics, actually. And his daughter was currently in Sick Kids Hospital with his wife, and they also had no idea what was happening at the time. Same thing with Oliver at the time. They didn't know what was happening, really. And he wanted his daughter's genome to be sequenced. The doctors was like, well, what the fuck does that mean? We can't do that, even though there's a sequencing thing right there in Sick Kids. So it was kind of infuriating. And I don't remember what the other doctor did, but just dismissive, because Eric was saying that, he had sequenced his genome through 23andMe, excellent company, by the way. And so we had a little bit of information, and Eric was by Chernobyl when he was a baby. He was born in January 86, and Chernobyl happened in April. And everyone in Eric's family has had cancer, so it seemed very likely that it was connected. And the doctors, just when you say this, they don't even consider it, at least at health services. And I understand it's like in a university, so a lot of people there are young, but just because you're young doesn't mean that you can't have cancer. In fact, I think our generation A lot of young people are going to get cancer because of all the crap that's in the environment and all the shitty food that people eat. And it's not something that should be dismissed, especially in a university, in my opinion. So Eric went to the director and complained about this, and the director gave him permission to see the doctor that he saw during undergrad, even though he wasn't a student. So I think it was then he went to see another doctor in the beginning of June. He was given another treatment and it didn't work. And so he went back. I think it was June 16th was the exact date. It was right after my birthday because I was also very ill. And we're like, okay, is our blah, blah, English, our illnesses connected? So we both went to the doctor and we saw this woman. It's one of the people that I am most frustrated with. And I'm even going to say her name. Her name is Sophie Wilson. She's an older woman at Health Services, and she infuriated me. The one and only time that Eric and I have ever gone to the doctor together for an appointment was when we went to see her. Because we called in, and it was important that we looked into it right away because Oliver was still in the hospital, and the doctor suggested that we go to the doctor and ask for a blood test and kind of see what was happening to make sure that we didn't expose him to anything. So we couldn't go and see him either. I couldn't go and see him. And when we went to see this woman and Eric was telling her about the treatments that he's had for his throat and it's still not working and it's getting worse, the doctor that gave him the treatment in the beginning of June said that if it didn't work, come back and we can renew your script. I think it was for nystatin at the time. Nystatin. And she basically refused to give him the prescription again. And she refused to give him a blood test. And she said that, how arrogant would she be as a doctor to think what his body knows to get better. And it was so frustrating. And she also said that, tests are expensive. And what's the point of doing tests if you don't know what you're looking for? And I'm a mathematician, and Eric is trained as a physicist, and we do data science as well. So as you can imagine, we were pretty pissed by this. I was infuriated. I don't think I've ever been so angry at a doctor before in my life, basically insulting my entire profession. And we participated in the Big Data VR Challenge, which was with Wellcome Trust and Epic Games. So we're not completely stupid to this area either. And I challenged the woman on this, and she finally was like, okay, fine, I'll give Eric a small dose of nystatin until he can go back to the other doctor that he was seeing before, which he was not going to go back to, by the way. And but the dose that she wrote was like an order of magnitude too small. So when we went to fill it, the pharmacist was like, no, this must be wrong. This can't be correct. This is a pointless dose. And we called health services again, and we booked another doctor's appointment the same day to see Dr. S, who Eric had permission to see, by the way, because I think he went back after this point to the director again. There was then a note put in Eric's file saying that he could see Dr. S for this condition. He better evaluated Eric. He took a swab of his throat. And he gave him a prescription, and he said that if it wasn't better after a little bit and when he finishes the prescription, that he needs to come back right away, because if these things aren't working, it probably means that it's a more serious issue and that potentially maybe cancer. This doctor had Eric's father's medical records as well. So, I mean, this doctor knew Eric pretty well, and he knew about his father and the cancer that he died of and a lot of these details. So, of course, things didn't get better. So Eric booked an appointment to see this doctor. I think this was in July. And literally 5 minutes before the appointment, Eric was at health services waiting. And I can't remember if it was a nurse or secretary. I think Eric said it was a secretary that came out, and she was like, you can't see Dr. S. And he was like, what do you mean I can't see him? And she said that the doctor refused to see him because he was not a student. when he explained that there was a note in his file and he had permission from the director to see this person, the woman said that it didn't matter, and she refused to let him go back because Eric wanted to ask him in person, "Are you refusing to see me?" And she said, "Nope, the doctor said that refuses to see you, he won't see you." And the thing that's also frustrating about this and that makes it illegal is that there wasn't anyone else there to see him. So, by definition, it's refusal of care. And even according to, the own university policies, if you cancel an appointment, it has to be 24 hours ahead of time. And it wasn't. It was 5 minutes ahead of time, and he was right there. And at this time in health services, it was it was crazy because health services was really backed up, and it took 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes even 6 weeks before you could get an appointment. And I had this problem as well. So not only did he have to wait, it was at least another 4 weeks before he could see a doctor. I'm going to look up these exact timelines to make sure, but it was quite a while. It wasn't until August that he was able to see someone, and he saw a new doctor. And because it was a new doctor, they had to go through the entire protocol again. So it's not like this new doctor could just kind of pick up where things left off. Nope, she had to do everything again. So that delayed him by months. This was what? This was August. Finally, in November, Eric's mother tracked down his childhood family doctor. She hadn't seen him in years. This person's in like his 70s. He's a well-known surgeon, but she ended up finding him, and he went to 2 appointments with this doctor, and even the first one, he referred Eric to a specialist in Toronto, but it was going to take 6 to 8 months, so we would have had to wait until May this year before seeing that specialist. And so Eric went back to see his other doctor at health services. So he's kind of going back and forth at this point in November because things are starting to get a lot worse. He's starting to lose weight. Like his throat and tongue now have lesions on them. He's having a really hard time eating and speaking because his tongue and everything is so swollen. And finally, it was November or beginning of December when he saw the doctor at health services. When she saw that things were like really bad, he had lost a lot of weight. He's probably lost like about 10 or 15 pounds at this point. She found another doctor that he could see, a specialist, ENT, ear and throat, by the way, ear and throat specialist, and in Cambridge. So she wrote him a referral so he could see this doctor January 29th, the day after his birthday. So that was at least better, but then in December things got even worse. They got really bad. It was brutal to watch him go through it. He could barely speak. He could barely eat. His tongue was bleeding all the time. Finally, over the holidays, we went to the ER, and some people may be saying, "Oh, well, why didn't you go to the ER sooner?" Well, a few reasons. So one reason is because his immune system is not the greatest. He had salmonella or typhus fever. They're not 100% sure which one it was as a baby, and he almost died. He had to go over to Germany to get treatment. He was born in Poland. And so he has a terrible immune system, and the fear was that because this flu season has been so rough, going to the ER, you're going to be exposed to the flu, even if you wear masks and such. And when Eric gets even a cold, he'll get a fever, and his fevers are so bad, he'll hallucinate what he hallucinated as a baby. And when he gets sick, he gets really sick. And so the fear was that if we went to the ER and we had to wait so long to see a specialist, what if he got the flu? We didn't know if he would be able to survive it because he was so weak at this point. But we sucked it up, and we decided that it was worth the risk, and we went to the ER. And I'm so happy at least that doctor took him seriously, and she said that no, that this isn't like a thrush or a yeast infection for like 10 months, even his demographic, because Eric is an Ashkenazi Jew, and yeast infections can kill these people. Immune to AIDS, but yeast infection can kill them. crazy. 23andMe, we found that out, by the way, the AIDS thing. But because now he's considered urgent care in Canada, it's not first comes, first serve. It's based on priority, which I've never appreciated so much in my life. Between my nephew and Eric, I really appreciate this, at least about Canada, that the urgent person does get first priority. But what I don't like is that we're not basing medicine on preventative care. It would save us billions of dollars, literally. But so we went to the ER, and then 2 days later, he was able to see a specialist in Kitchener. I don't know why he wasn't referred to the person in Kitchener, but the person in Cambridge is really good. So I like that he saw the person in Cambridge. And so then the whole specialist thing started, and then the biopsy, and I'll get into the rest of that stuff later on. I don't know, it's frustrating, it's depressing, it makes me angry. That Sophie Wilson person literally laughed in our faces, like literally laughed in our faces about this stuff. And I'm so angry with her. We've contacted several law firms, all of which have called us back, and I think we're going to pursue it because, unfortunately, in civilized society, the only way you can change things is by suing people. Money is the thing that people pay the most attention to. And, if we didn't do anything and this kept happening and this happened to someone else, I would just feel terrible. This should not happen to people. Just because you're young, it doesn't mean that you can't be sick. And just because, I don't know. Patients have more information about things now than doctors because we have the internet, and I'm not talking about necessarily Wikipedia and MD. I'm talking about you can go on the NIH website and you can look things up yourself. This is why it's important to keep your medical records and ask for your medical records. And legally, by the Freedom of Information Act, you're entitled to have your own records. So always ask for them, and that's what we've been doing. And then, this Dr. S person, who's also my doctor, he really let us down. This wasn't someone that we met once. This was someone that's known us for like 8 years and had all the information and knew that we had done that work with Wellcome Trust, and I don't know. It's depressing. It sucks to see him in pain. Luckily, I have software so I can cut out these emotional scenes. Doctors are idiots sometimes, and I think it's an ego thing. I hate to say it, but when your patients come in with more information, they have their own genomic information. They've looked everything up. They have like 10 medical papers for you to read. It's intimidating. I understand, but as a doctor, you shouldn't just go to medical school and stop. Things are changing way too quickly. 20, 30 years ago, we barely knew anything about genomics at all. We couldn't, do even the small sequences that we're able to do now. And it's changing medicine, and you are your best doctor because no one's going to be more invested in your healthcare than you and your family. So this is just like something that needs to be changed in the culture of medicine. And medicine has to start becoming more of a science rather than an art. Because yes, medicine is an art. It's not a science. It's 50-50. Science is 95-5, not 50-50. And people have to become more scientifically literate because too many people are dying. This last year alone, I've literally met 4 women who've had their husbands die of cancer, and it was preventable. The doctor said that if they had seen the patient a month early, it would have been fine. They would have been able to treat them, but it progressed so badly in the last month that they weren't able to. And that's what we were really afraid of, that things started changing so quickly that we didn't know if he was going to make it or not. And this clinical trial, I think, is making the biggest difference. It's incredible, actually, like the difference that we see, but it also makes me very nervous because of how quickly things can change. So my concern or fear is that when he stops taking the chemotherapy, will the cancer become more immune to it, so become less responsive if he has it in the future? Because it's called a biogenic chemotherapy, so it tries to correct the genetic spelling mistake, basically, is the way I'll phrase it for now. I can describe it in more detail later, or Eric can because he's more of a specialist in this area. But will it come back stronger? Um, when Eric was receiving all these different treatments for what they thought was an infection, and there was some sort of a yeast infection, like there's always yeast in your body, right? So, it's a system of ODEs. Which one came first? Who knows? It's like the chicken or egg problem. It's a system of ODEs, meaning that they're coupled. You can't separate them completely. But every time he took some sort of treatment, he started getting better, which is also the other reason why we didn't go to an ER, because there was some sort of response. But then, as soon as the treatment started coming to an end and he would stop for a day or so, things would get way worse. So I guess I'm concerned that I'm going to see that pattern again. I'm just happy the doctors that we have now they're really awesome. The London Regional Cancer Program, or Cancer Center. I've seen both titles, so I always get them confused. But it's in the Victoria Hospital in London, Ontario, and they are amazing. The doctors there are so competent and they listen. And I know that we're researchers, which influences part of it, but for us, they didn't dumb anything down at all, which we greatly appreciated. It felt more like working with colleagues. We seem to also teach them some things, which is really neat. So it seems like it goes both ways. We're giving them some new information too, which they're asking to give more of. So I mean, it's really nice that way. I'm sorry I started babbling a lot in this video. I may cut quite a bit of it out. So I think I'm gonna close this off for the night. Maybe I'll put like an exact timeline of the dates for the medical doctors that I mentioned at health services, just to make sure I'm not making false statements. Part of it's on recollection, so please note that. I have hard copies of everything though, so I know the exact dates of everything. But thanks for listening. I hope people out there in similar situations that, be strong. Peace out.